guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. This is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Well, of course, just a couple weeks after an election happens, now the truth starts coming out. What do you know? We're going into a recession and layoffs are happening at a lot of major companies, and the soft jobs are getting cut. And I talked a little bit about this. This is the human resources stuff, and this is the marketing stuff, and this is all the girls that like to walk around and take pictures of their luxurious workplace while they sip on creme brulee coffee and eat omelets that are prepared by work. That's all going away. The era of free spending is over. So like I'll probably put in the title of this video, women are most affected. They're going to be the positions that are let go of for the most part. I'll jump right into it here. A couple of fun stories, and then we'll get to the serious stuff. Victoria's Secret CEO Amy Hawke to exit after just 8 months, and they say the stock plummets, but she's actually leaving because the stock had been plummeting. They say they in the last 12 months, I won't read the whole story, but in the last 12 months, Victoria's Secret and Co.'s stock price has fallen around 40%, outpacing the S&P 500's decline of around 20%. And they're, of course, stunning and brave, but they're having a guy come in and replace her. I don't know if they say his name. Well, Martin Walters. He's 56. He's been doing this for a long time. And, of course, this is her. And she was all in about the body positivity and inclusivity. And also, they're getting away from the kind of market that they were really good at, which is the kind of the sexy stuff and the attractive stuff, and they started splitting out into all these other, not that you guys care, but they started splitting out and trying to compete with Lululemon and all these other products that other companies make, and they make them better. So Victoria's Secret went right down a dead-end road. This is what I wanted to read from GeekWire, the end of everything at Amazon. Record layoffs signal new mindset for sprawling tech giant. At the end of this, I'm going to talk about zombie companies a little bit, but when the money is good, and you have good balanced budget sheets, and you can borrow lots of money, and you get venture capitalists willing to throw money at you or buy your stock at whatever price it is, or you can borrow money and buy back your own stock to increase its value, you incorrectly and maybe to the danger of investors, prop up your stock price. And it looks like the company's doing a lot better than it should. Then all of a sudden, when the interest rates go way up and companies can no longer afford to borrow that money, they got to start paying back, even, they can't keep bringing it in, and they have to pay back the other stuff, even though it's at a much lower interest rate. And so that free money can't keep coming in, and they're paying for it. An in-depth Amazon coverage from the tech giant's hometown, including e-commerce, AWS, Amazon Prime. That's going to be a big one because Prime's not doing well with spending $1 billion on their flop of the Lord of the Rings adaptation. Alexa, logistics, devices, and more. So in here, it doesn't really say too much about what departments they're going to specifically be laying off, but they're laying off 18,000 people, which is about 5% of its workforce. That's immediate. Now, remember, the interest rates just went up a couple of months ago. Interest rates, if they're going to tamp down this inflation, are going to have to come up a lot. But because of the inflation, a lot of people are saying, hey, I need a higher salary. I need to make more money. Which, yes, that costs the company more money, and it costs them, and it makes them either raise the prices of their goods, which is more inflation, or they keep the prices low and they earn less money. And if they earn less money, it makes it harder to pay back all these loans and what everybody's borrowed. So we're getting into a situation here where things are going to get pretty tight for a while, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years. Here's the part I wanted to read, though. They say a majority of the cuts affect Amazon stores, the company's retail arm. So those are physical locations. They have these, the stores that they have out there, they found that they were putting in these automatic scanners to read whatever products you walk out the door with and charge your card. And they're finding people are robbing these places and stealing them and doing horrible things, mostly out on the West Coast, of course, because California. But they say, and the people experience and technology, it's human resources arm of the company. I called it. I told you this was going to happen months ago. I said all these soft jobs, these middle management jobs, these human resources jobs, these diversity, equity, inclusion jobs, they're all going to go away. The company's going to find a way to purge itself of these wokesters and these crazies that are in the human resources and in their, people departments. They said the cuts are the largest in the Amazon's 28-year history. So when they say the majority are coming from the retail and from the people experiencing technology, that's going to be 18,000 people from pretty much those positions, and we're just getting started. So all these girls that are out there sipping on the lattes and bragging on all, and I know they weren't working at Amazon, they were working at other tech companies, but it's kind of the same thing. You know, Elon just did this. Facebook is doing this. They're clearing out the softies, the ones that are sponges on the company and not the producers for the company. So all these girls that are looking at you like you're a nobody because you may be a welder or a carpenter or whatever, making 60 grand a year, and she's getting 100 grand a year to go sip on lattes, she's probably going to be serving you your latte pretty soon. That is, if you happen to buy lattes. And again, guys, these stories right here, January 4th, these other stories, January 4th, isn't it amazing that everything was fine and nothing to see here until right after the election? And now here we are, and they're all of a sudden saying, oh my goodness, look at this. Who could have seen this coming? Recession predicted in 2023 for U.S. economy by economists at major banks. Most manufacturers predict recession in 2023. So manufacturers are now predicting this. And when you read back, you start saying, sounds like they've been predicting it for a while. Why didn't this make it into the news? Politics is involved in everything. So understand that. You have to go outside of the mainstream to try to find the truth on things. And the story I'll last touch on is this one, because this is where it's going to affect everybody. A huge number of zombie companies are drowning in debt. The CEO sees a reckoning as interest rates soar. And this is what I was talking about. Companies that can't borrow money or that have had the ability to borrow money in the past, like Vice and BuzzFeed and some of these other news articles, plus up to 20% of other United States companies have been living on borrowed time. And now that their bills come due and they don't have the money anymore. This will be a huge fall off for all segments of the market. But again, if you're in an industry or you're smart enough at least to know when you get laid off, you don't need to go serve a coffee for $12 an hour, but you can actually maybe make that life change of becoming an apprentice or learning a new trade. This might be the time you need to do that. They're working on my land right now, and it's been months just to get someone up there to clear the land. That's all that's been done. I've owned this land now for almost a year. As a matter of fact, I've owned it more than a year, I think. And I had the contract with the general contractors to go up there and clear the land. And I went up there. I drove up there a couple days after Christmas just to take a look around. I didn't expect them to be working. And there was one guy up there, and he's actually the kind of the general manager of the company that does the general contract work that I hired for. I said, hey, I didn't expect to see anybody up here. He's like, man, we got to get it done, man. It's just me. He said, I can't get a crew up here. And I said, why not? What's going on? He said, no one wants to work. He said, everybody's gotten so much, and this is his words, not mine. He said, everybody got so much money from all the COVID stuff and the government, subsidies and all this stuff, and they got money for being unemployed, and they could just sit around. None of them want to come back to work. They're still living off that money. I said, when do you think it's going to happen? He goes, I don't know, but once it dries up, I have a feeling we'll be finding plenty of workers to work on your stuff for you. So it's kind of a little bit of a game, but I'm seeing it impact me in my real world. Well, what's going to happen to all these companies? It's going to be the same thing, and it might be that time to find a new trade. It may not be something you love, but maybe you can learn something out of it. But David Traynor, the CEO of investment research firm New Constructs, believe there are now roughly 300 publicly traded zombie companies. And with interest rates soaring, money isn't as cheap as it used to be, which means zombie companies are facing a reckoning that will affect both investors and the economy as a whole as the recession fears mount. And again, they're still not admitting that we're actually in one. But if you look at the details and the way we've tracked it historically, we are in one. They just still don't want to say it yet. What they know is the minute that they say we're in one, people will react accordingly, and they're trying to hold this off, but you can only hold it off so far. It's still going to happen. You're just delaying the pain. They say when economic reality hits these companies and they do a go to zero or close it, which is what we're going to see in spades, a lot of investors are going to get crushed, Traynor told Fortune. Now, the other ones I wanted to read here, Goldman Sachs recently estimated that some 13% of U.S. listed could be considered zombies. But a study last year by the Federal Reserve, which is our Federal Reserve, which can't be trusted, says 10%. And Deutsche Bank strategist Jim Reed conducted a study in April 2021 that found over 25% of U.S. companies were zombies. And that was in 2020, before all of this stuff went down and before the interest rates started going up. So what happens is that these companies, the ones that aren't going to survive, they're not going to survive. They can't afford these interest rates. The interest rates keep having to go up to some degree to try to tamp down this inflation, but they can't go up too much because then our own government will default on its debt. So what are the companies going to do in the meantime? Layoffs. They're going to start gutting these companies to get them to a point where they can survive to some degree. And that's going to mean thinning the herd. What are they going to keep? You got to keep the guys building the stuff. At any company, you've got to have the ones that are producing. You got to have the engineers. You got to have the craftsmen. You got to have the delivery. You've got to have the janitors. But which ones do you get rid of? Middle management. Every company I've ever worked for that did layoffs, we engineers oftentimes got nervous when we heard our company was doing layoffs. And at one point they shaved 14% of the company. When was that? 2008. But when they shaved that 14%, what we found oftentimes, we got new managers all of a sudden. And instead of a manager managing a team of 8, that manager would be would be managing a team of 50. And then the managers, to kind of be able to handle that many people, would give a small promotion to 1 or 2 or 3 of the workers to start doing scheduling, to be the liaison for sick people and whatever between human resources. And they divvied out some of the work. The workers that were willing to do that extra work got bumps, but it was a lot cheaper than having all those extra managers. That's going to happen again. They're also going to be cleaning out the human resources departments. They're going to be cleaning out all the crazies. They're going to be cleaning out everybody that wants to protest what the company does. They're just going to say, I'm sorry, we got to lay you off, even if they don't need to. This is the time that they're going to use to clear it out. But what I find interesting is it is going to be those do-nothing jobs, the softies in the middle, the HR departments, the secretaries, the guy that's doing your mixology stuff, whatever it is, for your after-work mimosa. They're going to be the ones that get laid off. And you watch, these women are going to be complaining. But all of a sudden, that guy that's just the 9-to-5 carpenters might start looking good. So remember that. When the rough times and the bad times get going, these girls may start sniffing around, hoping to find themselves a good man, even though he's perhaps less educated than they are and they think they're smarter than him. They'll settle if it means they can survive on your paycheck. So just be aware of that and don't fall for the trap. For those of you over on YouTube, make sure to join us on Locals because I've got a couple more stories to jump into, but they're not ones that I'm going to talk about here on YouTube.